Dave, I mean, you said it, Theon Greyjoy. Give me your Emmy nomination thoughts. What stood out to you?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a bit of a surprise. We'll get to that, but overall, I think it's a pretty good crop of nominated shows and performers. You have to remember that in the peak TV era, where there's about 500 scripted shows every year, many of them quite good, there's going to be omissions. So it's hard to think everything's perfect. So you just want to make sure they're really nabbing the right stuff and I think growing as TV continues to grow. I think overall it's a pretty strong crop, even if there are some perplexing omissions and surprising choices like there is every year. What was your initial thought?
I agree with pretty much everything you said. Um, the big headline that came out of it in a lot of places was Game of Thrones breaks the record for most nominations for a single season of television. And for a season of television that a lot of people were down on or disappointed by in some ways. And you can check out our thoughts on that. Go to youtube.com/nowstalgiapod. Check out our breakouts for each episode of Game of Thrones, as well as our overall season thoughts. My feeling is Game of Thrones is, as we've talked about on the podcast, one of the last monocultural shows, and I think since this is the last time they can nominate these people, they wanted to kind of give them a little love, a little appreciation. It's almost like a show achievement award, so to speak. It's funny because I think if there's going to be 1 or 2 seasons that could break it, it probably would have been like that 2, 3, 4 season range where the show is really at its peak. But I guess they'll take it. Overall, though, the thing that stood out to me was just HBO and Netflix dominating the nominations. I mean, 137 for HBO, 117 for Netflix. And then the next closest was NBC with like 58 or something along those lines. It's 60 awards separate the second and third most nominated station. What do you make of that?
Yeah, and last year a lot of headlines were made about Netflix actually passing HBO for the first time last year. And, along those lines, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, when it won for Best Comedy, was the first streaming comedy to win that prize. That's, of course, for Amazon. And then Handmaid's Tale Season 1 won Best Drama 2 years ago for Hulu. And Netflix, was last to the party in terms of like major prizes. Yet overall, they have the biggest breadth of high-end shows among those streamers, even if they haven't won the big prize yet. But I mean, it shouldn't surprise you that HBO is right there, of course, especially when they have Thrones and Veep this time around to get nominated once again. But yeah, Netflix just makes a lot of stuff, and a lot of it's good. So it shouldn't be surprising to anyone. Hulu only having 20 noms. Think about, and like there are some Hulu shows that didn't get any love this year, like Shrill and Pen 15 and Rami, for example. I know new shows people like, but overall, you just got to remember that the cultural footprint and thus campaign dollars put in for Netflix shows just really trumps, but by choice of words, really triumphs, over Hulu and Amazon, which also kind of lacks a big volume of shows apart from like a big stalwart like Maisel. So, nothing too surprising, to be honest.
Actually, the ones that Hulu did get to were a little bit confusing. The Pen 15 writers got nominated for Best Comedy Writers, but then Handmaid's Tale wasn't up for Best Drama, but somehow its actors could be nominated, and it was a very confusing look.
Yeah, it's because of season. So the overall like eligibility period of this was June 1st, 2018, last year, through May 31st of this year. Now, the way it worked, you have to at least premiere before that deadline date to get into the period. But if you have episodes that are like out of the period, because the season obviously takes a while, you can get in the next time around. That's what Handmaid's Tale just did for their last season. Just kind of like sneaking in some noms they probably won't even win. Kind of weird category fraud. I don't think that should be allowed. I feel like a season, whether it's split or not, should only be able to be eligible in one Emmy year. Maybe you pick which one you want to run in, whatever. That's what I would say. But I mean, to that point, last year there was no Thrones or Veep to be nominated. This year, no Handmaid's Tale season 3. Americans is gone, obviously, off the air. Black Mirror season 5, not this year. Euphoria, not this year. Stranger Things season 3. Big Little Lies season 2. Atlanta, The Crown, Westworld, Silicon Valley. A lot of shows we come to expect getting a lot of love, either stop airing or are in between periods. So I think that actually kind of opened up some real estate for other shows, which is pretty exciting.
Definitely. Why don't we look through a couple of the categories, maybe shout out any nominations or anything that we were excited about. I guess I'll start with the comedy series category, best comedy series. This is probably the most stacked category. I think we felt that way last year as well, but I mean, just going down the line: Barry, Fleabag, The Good Place, Maisel, Russian Doll, Schitt's Creek, and Veep. Pretty cool that Schitt's Creek got the nomination. It's a show. It's going into its 6th season. Very cult following on Netflix.
Right.
It's been airing up in Canada, and Netflix picked it up and really has brought it to the foreground for a lot of people who are calling it, Arrested Development, basically just in Canada, though. So it's pretty interesting. What else has stood out to you?
Yeah, Schitt's Creek is very interesting because it's not a Netflix show at all. They do not produce it. They don't fund it at all. They just distribute it to people in the US. And obviously, Netflix has built the audience for this show. I've heard evangelizing the past few years for it. I never really expected it to break through this way. You have to think too, like, this is a tough category. I mentioned like a show like Rami, that freshman show, not watched that much. Really hard to see that breaking through. But other stuff that is more popular, like Glow, which was nominated last time, not here. Insecure on HBO did not crack through. Better Things from Pamela Adlon, also not here. And then either shows they've nominated before, like Blackish, Kimmy Schmidt, Komsky Method, to get some acting noms for that show. So no matter what your choice is for comedy, the obvious consensus is that it's a fucking ridiculously stacked category and has been for quite some time. It's more stacked than drama, which is really interesting to think about. The top tier of comedy has been strong in the top tier of drama for a few years now.
Almost equally as stacked, just looking through limited series, Chernobyl, Escape at the Denimore, Fosse Verdon, Sharp Objects, and When They See Us. We haven't touched on Escape at the Denimore, but we've touched on or talked about or mentioned these other shows. We haven't talked about When They See Us on the pod either, but we're very aware of it. I mean, from everything here, it seems like it's at least a 4, maybe even 5 horse race in this category. I have to imagine Chernobyl's the favorite, but man, that really tough category to pick.
Yeah, this is a tough one because Dannemora is going to probably get some love for Patricia Arquette in the acting category, but that's also a tight race as well. Yeah, this is because you got 2 HBO shows. I think they're definitely going to push for Chernobyl because it's newer and I think was just overall more popular. But then you have Netflix with When They See Us, another huge success for them. And Fosse Verdon, probably, I think if we're going to cross one off, it's probably Fosse Verdon.
Yeah.
A show that we still liked a lot, but also had a bit of a mixed dialogue surrounding it. You can watch a review for more on that. Honestly, what's out to me, though, is limited series is actually fucking really stacked this year. No Catch-22 from Hulu. No Maniac from Netflix. No Little Drummer Girl from AMC. That's probably the biggest omission if you had to pick one.
Yep.
No The Act, which got some other noms. So it's and of course no True Detective.
Yeah.
Season 3. So that's definitely an exciting category. Love that one.
What else stood out to you, or what were you surprised at?
Honestly, drama series. Usually not one you expect much to, knock your socks off. The Emmys generally nominate stuff multiple times at the top tier categories once they nominate things. So a lot of usual suspects: Better Call Saul, Game of Thrones, Succession is here. That's great. Pose is here. That's great. This Is Us is back once again. Ozark, Netflix pushes for that. It gets it done. Killing Eve back once again. Even if Me and You aren't as high in Killing Eve season 2, it still makes sense that it's here. Bodyguard getting in, which is actually really exciting as well. It's a Dead Man's Switch, Vicky. But what surprised me, I'm not surprised that The Deuce isn't here. It has been here before. Billions, same thing, not here. I would have loved Sex Education. Would have loved My Brilliant Friend. Not realistic. But what actually legitimately surprised me is the total lack of noms, really, for Homecoming last year. The Julia Roberts led show with Sam Esmail on Amazon. Totally not here at all. Julia wasn't nominated either. Bobby Cannavale, Stephen James, nothing. That's probably my number one surprise of this whole thing.
Yeah, it seems like I mean, I don't know all the categories by heart, but it seems like just completely overlooked as a show. Have to imagine Amazon's pretty bummed about that, especially with the second season coming back out. They probably want to feather in their cap to kind of push for that whenever that's ready. Yeah, that is surprising, and it kind of just speaks to the level of TV quality right now, and we're definitely past the peak TV, golden age TV, however you want to put it, but just the bar has been raised for all these shows, and we've been talking, obviously off air about how much TV we've been watching just because the quality demands it, and there's so many shows that are worth watching right now, and you just can't keep up with it. I mean, think about even in that drama series category you talked about. I mean, we don't talk about Ozark on the show, Pose, or This Is Us.
Right.
That's three of what people are saying is the best shows on television that we're just not able to keep up with just by the fact that there's too much television and we have to pick and choose. Pretty crazy. Well, moving down to lead actress in a drama series, you talked about it before, but this is where Emilia Clarke got. I wanted to talk about the supporting actress in a drama series. 4 Game of Thrones people nominated. 4. What?
Crazy. And what just came out today, HBO did not actually submit for Gwendolyn Christie, Alfie Allen, or Carice Van Houten. Melisandre got a guest actress nomination for the one scene where she spews some Lord of Light shit and lights some torches. Fine. Awesome. But
man, I've never seen anyone walk out into a field the way that she did, though.
I know, man.
Turned dust.
It was pretty badass.
Powerful.
But you know what sucks about this? I mean, obviously you're over nominated stuff, and if we're making choices, Lena Headey probably should have won in past seasons, but she has very little dialogue, and in the last season, she does not move around much at all. It's definitely just the weakest written Cersei season. Yet she's still here. So in terms of picking who the hell wins this category, it's pretty wild. I really don't know. Maybe they just go with Fiona Shaw, to be honest.
I was going to say Fiona Shaw probably would be my pick. I mean, Maisie Williams, I guess, because she had probably the biggest moments out of the 4. Maybe Gwendolyn Christie. It's just so hard to say.
We're in the summer of Sophie right now. Maybe that'll impact voting as it's going on right now. I'm not sure. The one thing that does suck about the abundance of throne acting noms in this category is that Rhys Seehorn from Better Call Saul has still not been nominated for her role as Kim Wexler, which is just horrible.
Ridiculous, man. I mean, the fact that Gwendolyn Christie, even though she was great in the scenes that she got nominated over her, is really just frustrating. Because every time we talk about Saul, we come back to Rhys Seehorn really is like the anchor of that. And without her, that show doesn't really work, and the audience doesn't get as much out of it. So definitely disappointing. Just kind of looking one category down, a bit of the same for supporting actor in a drama series. I mean, like you already mentioned, Alfie Allen got nominated, but Peter Dinklage and Nikolai Coster-Waldau getting nominated again. Then we have 2 stalls, a House of Cards nomination.
Michael Kelly still. My God.
Michael Kelly and Chris Sullivan for This Is Us. What do you make of that category?
Yeah, and as I mentioned, no Bobby Cannavale from Homecoming, and also probably even more disappointing, no Kieran Culkin from Succession. Would love to see that.
Succession just criminally underrepresented in general.
Hold on. Don't know if that came through. Well, Michael Kelly had been nominated before for House of Cards, and it's just ridiculous that it's getting any more attention for this final post Kevin Spacey season. And Esposito hadn't been nominated last time either, so that's actually a bit surprising, I guess, just because Gus isn't in the show that much,
No.
I'm not sure who the pick is here. It's probably just going to be Dinklage again because he won last time he was nominated, and he's won a few times already. So I wouldn't have a problem with that. He did have a good season for the final season. Tough one.
Yeah, definitely a tough one. It, just kind of looking through a couple of nominations I was really pumped about. Lead actress in a drama series. I'm pulling for Jodie Comer, like all the way in that. She's absolutely electric, and even if Killing Eve season 2 isn't its best work, it's still like she's still absolutely stunning in that show. NoHo Hank, Anthony Kerrigan getting that nomination in the supporting actor in a comedy series. Very exciting stuff. And also Barry just getting 3 in the supporting actor with Stephen Root and Henry Winkler getting the nod. That'll be interesting to see if they pull votes from each other. Maybe Tony Shalhoub will get the win there again for Maisel. Anything else that stood out to you, or anything else you're pumped for?
Brian Cox, Succession, Richard Madden, as we said. I know some people are pulling for Jim Parsons from Big Bang Theory for his final go at it.
Nah,
I'm not gonna. There's no spilled milk there, as far as I'm concerned. Television movie. Deadwood did get nominated, although no Ian McShane or Timothy Olyphant, interestingly enough.
Bandersnatch is that category locked up, Doug.
Yeah, Romanoff notably was not nominated in that category, which makes sense to me and you. I mentioned Chris Van Houten. Oh, that's right. Catch-22. No noms for Kyle Chandler or George Clooney. Kind of tough for the Hollywood stars, man. No Julia, no Clooney. Amy Adams is probably going to lose in her category. Laura Dern didn't win for The Tale last year. It's the notion that movie stars can come on the TV and just win awards by showing up. It's not really the case anymore. It's fucking spooky out here, man.
Spooky out here. So some really good signs, though. I think in the nominations, more than half of the writers in the comedy writing category are female, including Phoebe Waller-Bridge, a couple of the people from Pen 15. Amy Poehler and Natasha Lyonne from Russian Doll. Just really awesome that these shows are getting the recognition that they so rightfully deserve. I keep looking at comedy series, man, because Veep is such a staple, and you got the last season and it being so strong. I wonder if it'll get that like legacy award, or if the torch will continue to be passed. I mean, Fleabag would be my choice, but it's really stacked category. Overall, I'm really pleased
the last 2 times too. Yeah, that was super competitive.
Pose, another show that is getting a lot of love. It's a show we don't talk about much, but basically the premise is it tells stories about people in the 1980s and the Black and Latino LGBTQ community, particularly the ballroom scene in New York City. They got a best drama and best actor. Best actor. For Billy Porter, which is pretty awesome. Just overall, it's nice to see these sorts of shows getting recognized, even though they probably aren't the most popular shows or the most well-rated shows, on television. Feel bad for Richard Madden not getting that nomination for Bodyguard, but
man, switch.
And I also feel bad for D'Arcy Corden, who is fantastic on Good Place and didn't get a Best Supporting Actress nom, especially because there was like one episode where the whole episode was just her imitating the 4 or 5 other people in the show. It was just her the whole time. So I thought for sure she would get a nomination for that, but unfortunately did not. Overall, though,
to see Timothy Simons as well for Veep. Jonah.
Oh God. But yeah, I think overall we're pretty pleased with this, and we'll be doing our Emmy picks the week before the nomination. So sometime, would that be September 17th or something like that? It's 22nd this year. So stay tuned for that.